Welcome back to more Global War 1936. This is Operation Lone Ranger. I'm calling it that because this is a solo game. Hopefully at some point I can get some of my brother-in-laws and my cousin Yamin Khan to play a game with me at some point down the road. But we'll see. So I'm kind of making these videos kind of like to show the game off and to kind of make it a semi-tutorial series because the rule book is extremely long. It's like 114 pages or something like that. So instead of my brother-in-laws and Yaman just kind of reading through the rule book and boring themselves, I figure doing it in video format and kind of showing them the game first will kind of help them understand the game and kind of maybe even introduce some strategies on how to play and how to kind of approach the game too. So we'll see how it goes. My cousin Yamin Khan also has a YouTube channel, so I will link his channel down below in the description. He has a lot of cool videos of playthroughs of different video games and stuff, so a lot of fun over there. And he does different games from space simulation to a lot of multiplayer games, some MMO, and he'll also do grand strategy and let's see, what else does he do? Yeah, like survival games. He does that too. So yeah, he's got a good bit of variety over on his channel. So definitely go check him out. All right, let's get into turns 1.3 and 1.4, and this will be for the Communist Chinese, the CCP, and the Soviet Union or the USSR. All right, so the CCP goes first, and we have them set up over here on the board. They're here in the red, and China is a very interesting situation in this game. They start out in a civil war, and while two of the factions, the CCP and the KMT, the CCP is there in red, the KMT is here in the green color, they start out the game at war. And I think I failed to mention last round with Germany and nationalist Spain, kind of who's at war and who isn't. Of course, we know that Spain is at war, but the rest of the world, by and large, outside of China and Italy and Ethiopia, do not start out the game at war. So many of the major factions like the United States, Japan, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom or Great Britain do not start the game at war. And they likely will not go to war for a couple of turns, at least for Japan anyway. Japan will have a big decision to make. Do they go into China, or do they kind of just play it a little more conservative? Germany, the UK, France, they likely will not go to war until, if we look at the date chart here, most likely they will probably not go to war at the earliest until probably turn 6. So we have a little bit of time, and this is kind of the build-up phase where countries just kind of build up and get more units on the board to kind of gear up for the inevitable war. And the way that you win the game, I don't think I mentioned this last turn either, is on this chart here. So you need victory cities and you need strategic objectives. And of course, victory cities are kind of self-explanatory. You just take over, you conquer the other factions' cities, right? So at some point, Germany will likely conquer Paris, and that will give them 1 victory point. So as it stands right now, the Axis have 1, 2, 3. They have 3 victory points. Now, if Italy, let's say on Italy's turn, on turn 1, because they are at war with Abyssinia or Ethiopia, if Italy is successful in Abyssinia, they will likely get this strategic objective here, Africa Orientale Italiana. And this will give them 1 extra victory point, moving them up to 4. So that's kind of how the game works, right? You got to strive to meet these objectives, and each objective gives you a bonus, and not just an extra victory point. So you will get something from achieving these objectives, with the exception of victory cities. Now, let's say at some point in the game, Germany does conquer Paris. It's a major capital, major nation capital. So Germany and France does surrender. Some countries don't surrender even if you capture their capital. Germany is an example of that, and so is, just off the top of my head, Germany is, and so is the USSR. So, but in the case of France, when Paris falls, Germany will collect any money or any IPP that France has in its bank account. So Germany will capture that as well. So, and you can see the Comintern have 3. So they have Moscow, Stalingrad, and rapid industrialization. And I will get into what rapid industrialization means on the USSR's turn, because they start out with a bonus, or they start out with a strategic objective. The Allies, I believe, start out with 7. Actually, it may be 8. Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This counts for 2. Sun never sets. This is basically Britain having all of her colonies, or at least owning British Malaya and I think Gibraltar, maybe. I have to look it up. So they have to maintain control of some of their important colonies in order for this strategic objective to remain intact. But that counts as 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. United States starts out with sphere of influence because of I think the Monroe Doctrine and their influence over the rest of the Americas, from Central America down to South America. So so they start out with 8. And so it's pretty cool. So as you gain strategic objectives or victory cities, then the game will kind of get a little closer as time goes on, as the Axis build up more, and potentially the Comintern. It's a little harder for the Comintern, I feel like. I mean, they're at a disadvantage right from the start because it's just the USSR. You know, the Allies have France, even though France usually falls fairly early in the game. But they, you know, there's the British Empire, and eventually the United States joins in. So you've got a couple of major players on the Allied side, while on the Axis side you have 3 major nations. You've got Germany, Japan, and Italy. So so there might have to be a little bit of collaboration between the Allies and the Soviet Union, even if it's just like Lend-Lease or something, just to kind of help the Soviets out. We'll kind of see as the game goes along kind of what the Allies want to do, if they want to even help out the Comintern, right? I mean, they could even go to war with each other. I mean, the Soviet Union, certainly, if they feel like it, can declare war on the Allies. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, at least not mid-game, maybe late game, but, you know, you never know. We'll see. All right, so let's jump into the Communist Chinese turn. And like I had mentioned, they are really boxed in the mountains here in central China. They start out with 2 militia, 2 mountain infantry, and 1 cavalry. They do start out at war with the KMT, or the Nationalist Chinese. They do not start at war with the warlords. However, the Communist Chinese do have a special ability where they can influence a warlord. So this means that they can roll a dice and potentially win over that warlord to their side. And this would mean not only would they take over their territory, but they would also take over their units, control their units. So this is the primary way that the CCP can expand early game. Now, influence roll, basically this is how it happens. So we have one territory, right? So by default, to influence the warlord, we would have to roll a 1. However, you can spend money up to the amount that your basic roll is. Okay? So now, just because you have, let's say the CCP had 5 territories. Let's say they had Xikang, Qinghai, Xikang, and Tibet. Just for kicks, let's just say that they had 5 territories. You can, when you go to influence a warlord, you can only count the territories that border that warlord to your role, right? So in this case, if we wanted to influence Hopei and Beijing, we actually would only get a default of 1, despite the fact that we have 5 territories, because only 1 territory borders this warlord. Right now, if it was Suyan, we would actually get a default roll of 2. Okay? And then you can spend up to the amount of your roll to boost the roll up to that number, right? So if we said, okay, well, our default roll is a 2, let's spend 2 IPP and let's boost that roll to a 4 and increase our odds of influencing that warlord, right? So, I mean, technically the rules say that it subtracts from your roll, but, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you would need a 4 or less, right? You still need to roll a 2, but if you're spending 2 IPP, and let's say you roll a 4, well, if you roll a 4 and you subtract 2, then you end up with a 2, and that's what you need in order to influence that warlord. So I'm just kind of making it a little simpler because the rule can kind of be a little confusing. But basically the rule just states that you subtract the number, right? However many IPP you spend actually subtracts from your roll. And basically all I'm doing is saying, well, all I'm doing is just adding to the number that you need to hit that influence roll. So, I mean, the math all works out in the end anyway, so it's all good. All right, so for the CCP, they also get a recruitment roll, just like we did with Nationalist Spain. And as it stands right now, their recruitment roll would be at a 1 because they only have 1 territory. All right, so I'm going to, and you don't have to do your influence roll at the beginning of your turn. You can wait until the end, and that's what we're going to do because we are going to attack into Szechuan. And the strategy behind this is hoping that we take Szechuan and we increase our base influence roll to a 2. And then, because Szechuan does border, right there, Szechuan barely borders Hopei and Beijing, or Beijing, that will allow us to spend up to 2 IPP for our influence roll, and that will boost our roll up to a 4. All right, so let's, I haven't shown off the battle board yet, so let's put them on the battle board just for the heck of it. And they have defending, they have a militia, which defends at a 2, and an infantry that defends at a 4. Now this is mountains, okay? So our mountain infantry will not be affected. Our mountain infantry will not be affected by the mountain terrain, so they will attack at a 2. And then our cavalry will, will also attack at a 2. His default is a 3, but all units suffer -1 to their attack when attacking into mountains, with the exception of mountain infantry. So this cavalry is boosted down, or is boosted down to a 2. Okay, so you might be asking, well, why aren't I bringing in the militia? Well, militia can't attack. So Well, they can attack. They attack at a 1, but we have the -1 penalty to the mountains. So their attack would be at 0. They literally would just be cannon fodder. And, we want to upgrade our militia to regular infantry so we can have a little bit more punching power. So we are going to just leave them there in Sinshi for now. All right, let's get to rolling some dice, see how this turns out. This is a little bit of a risky proposition here. But if we aren't successful and if they do some damage on the first round of combat, we might just retreat and just bite the bullet and say, okay, well, we'll just forego the dream of taking over that territory. Okay, we get 3 dice and 2. And we almost hit. We got a 3, but no luck. All right. So he has 1 at a 4. He misses. It's a 9. And then he gets another one at a 2. Ooh, he almost hits, but he hits a 3. So we're going to go for another round. We do have the option to retreat if we so desire, but since there were no hits last round, I mean, we might as well just keep going. All right, so we have 3 to 2. Oh, nice. We got a hit. All right. So we will put that down here to indicate it's a hit. The other 2 dice were 6s, so they don't count. And then he has 1 at a 4. Oh, misses big time. That's good. And then 1 at a 2. And misses big time again, another 12. Ouch. All right, so now the defender gets to choose what casualty he's going to take. And of course, it makes the most sense to take off the militia because the militia is the weakest unit. And it's also, its value is worth less. So that's another factor in choosing what units to take off. Okay, so we clear off the dice there. All hits accounted for. We have 3 at 2 again on the attacking side. So we're going to do that. Oh, 3 10s. Wow. Okay. And then he has 1 at a 4. And he misses. So we'll go for another round. All misses. 7, 4, and 11. And then he gets 1 at a 4. And he misses. So this might be rolling a while here just to get some resolution. Oh, there's a 1. Nice, we hit. Okay. Progress. And then he gets 1 at a 4. And he misses. Not even close. All right, so no casualties on the CCP side. That actually went really well for them. Usually I suffer at least 1 casualty in that attack, but not this time, so that's good. So let's get a roundel and place it into Szechuan. Now, Szechuan is not worth anything. It's just, we're just trying to increase our influence role capabilities and our recruitment role capabilities. So these units will go into Szechuan. Stick the cavalry in there. All right. Now, for purchases, I forgot to do purchases, and we're not going to purchase anything. So usually you would do your purchases first. We're not going to purchase anything other than to increase our influence roll by 2, and we just so happen to start out with 2 IPP. So we will increase our influence roll to a 2, and we'll see how it goes. We are going to influence Hopei and Beiping. Try for that warlord. He has 1 militia and 3 regular infantry. So we'll roll this white die here. We need a 4 or less. Oh! Missed it by 1. Oh, that's brutal. All right. The only thing we have left to do for the CCP is to do our recruitment roll, and we have that at a 2 or less. So let's see if we can hit there. Get some free units. No, not really close. It's 9. Okay, and that's the CCP's turn. That's all they can really do. They will collect 2 IPP for their control over Shenxi. And then we will move on to the USSR. All right. On to the Soviets. So they, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they start out with a strategic objective of rapid industrialization. Now, in order for them to maintain this strategic objective, they need to hold on to all cities in their homeland. So this is Novosibirsk, Stalingrad, Kiev, Moscow, Smolensk, and Leningrad, way up there in the northwest part of the country. And this bonus gives them 1 extra technology role. Okay? Now, the Soviet Union is not allowed to do technology roles. They're not allowed to do their full technology roles until they get to 15 IPP. And that's when they can start their research. But because of our strategic objective, this gives us at least 1 to work with. So the 1 tech that we're going to go for is improved factories. Pretty standard. Improved factories for the Soviet Union will unlock T-34 tanks. So pretty good tech. Improved factories also does another thing. It also increases the capacity on the place unit phase. It basically doubles the amount of units you can place in a territory containing a factory. So if you have a minor factory, the default is 1. You can only place, like right here in Cape Town, there's a minor factory. So if Britain wants to place a unit here, their maximum that they can place is 1. Okay, improved factories doubles that. So if Britain had improved factories, they could place 2. The default for a medium factory, like here in Stalingrad, I believe is a 3. Pretty sure it's a 3. I'm going to double check that real quick just to make sure that's right. Let's see. And I know that a major default is a 5, and if you get improved factories, it increases that to a 10. So, pretty handy. Yes, a medium factory capacity that's capacity improved. The default is 3. So yes, I was correct. And then for major, it's a 5. And then, it gets boosted up to an 8. It's not 10. I stand corrected. It's 5 for a medium, boosted up to an 8 for a major. So, good thing we checked that. All right. So, the Soviet Union, we got to do the Republican Spanish first. I forgot about them. The CCP does go first, but then the Republican Spanish and the USSR kind of go together. They do their turns together. Okay, so for Republican Spain, we are kind of in a situation where we have to decide, do we want to defend Madrid or do we want to fall back to Catalonia? We also have the option to counterattack if we wanted to. We do have a medium bomber and a fighter there in Madrid to support any attacks. The other thing we've got to think about too, though, is let's say we go into Basque Country and retake it. They're going to have a force here to retaliate, and at that point we're just throwing units away. So And then, of course, I mean, it's not just the fact of the risk of taking the territory, and if he hits on a 4 with his infantry, he does some damage to us. We're already kind of strapped for units as it is a little bit. So these are the difficult decisions that you got to make in Spain. Is it worth retaking a territory, or do you just kind of turtle up and defend? At the same time, you don't want to leave Madrid exposed. Because it's one thing to retake Basque Country, but it's another thing to be able to reinforce and defend it the next turn. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We are going to attack Basque Country and try and retake it. I just feel like being aggressive. So we're going to take 1 infantry from Catalonia. Another one, a cavalry will move to Catalonia into Basque Country. We're not going to take any infantry out of Madrid because we don't want to just leave an open door for them to attack on their turn. But we will bring in the medium bomber and we will bring in the fighter. So let's go ahead and roll this on the board and see what the outcome is. And like I said, he just has 1 defending at a 4 there in Basque Country. Okay, so we have a medium bomber, and you see on the chart here that it has a 1 next to it. That is its interception defense value. So when you're doing strategic bombing campaigns or you are strategic bombing any kind of facility, if there's interceptors that launch from an airfield, then you do 1 round of interception and the fighter will attack at a 3 and bombers will, fighters attack or defend at a 3 if you have fighter escorts. And bombers, medium bombers, defend at a 1. So that's why that's there. And I can show that off a little later in the game. But as it stands right now, we hit at a 7 or less. And we get a 2. So we take down his infantry. His infantry does get a defense roll back at a 4. And, lucky for us, he misses. All right, so we have retaken Basque Country. We have a somewhat decent force defending. Now, cavalry only defends at a 2, so it's almost like having a militia there. But the good news is, at least